Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As we're getting ready, mashallah, the brother himself will mention background and so on. But this is actually ties in quite well with the theme what we're learning from. You know, in the near the time of the DAJJAL, the fitna, the corruption, and the confusion, the deception will increase. The Muslims, the sincere ones, they will retreat to the mountains to save themselves, and save their iman. So because of the intensity and the darkness would increase, for the sincere servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who are seeking Allah's support and help would also increase in a spiritual sense. Like we are learning here, how to have that access so that we're not deceived by the great deceiver who are to come. And so sometimes we cannot understand what does that mean. How will Allah increase their support? Obviously the nubuwwah, the prophethood and the risalah, the messengership is all closed. There's no way to come. But Allah will still guide with farasa, with the insight and knowledge and so on, which sometimes hard to comprehend. But the saying of this promise from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is truth and haqq. And just to see and witness that one example in our times, although I'm not saying the DAJJAL is coming in our times, but to see an example how Allah can guide and give you special support and help in times of confusion, in times of where people are questioning whether you're a man or a woman anymore. In those times, that how a person is guided. If you're sincere to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you believe in Him and ask Him, Allah will guide you to the right people as well. And you'll hear a story now, inshallah. So I go over to Brother Abdullah.
Assalamu alaikum.
You can rest a bit.
You'll have to forgive me because I've not prepared much at all for this. It's kind of dropped on me, so I'll try and fit 37 years into 15 minutes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So I suppose the story would start. I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, so my mum was quite religious in that regard, and I've always believed in it. So up until the age of 16 years old, I always believed in, that was the right religion. But I always struggled because Jehovah's Witnesses, if you know much about them, they don't believe in a soul. So they believe when you die, your body is you, and that's it, you die. And then when it comes to the resurrection, your body will be raised. So it's not your soul, your body will be recreated and you'll be raised. So it's partly the same as Islam, apart from that we do believe that there's a soul that's distinct and separate from the body. But from a young age, I didn't believe that I was just a body. Like, for some reason, I just felt that I was a little bit more than that. And I couldn't really explain my feelings when I was younger, but I used to do something very strange where I used to sit in front of a mirror and I used to repeat the words, "Who am I? Who am I?" And the reason why I did that is because whenever I did that, I felt my soul speaking back to me. So when I got older, although I wasn't a practicing Jehovah's Witness, I always knew I would return to it at some point, but it happened that I converted to Islam. I won't go into that because that'll take too much time, but I converted to Islam because Islam made more sense to me in the sense that we had a soul, because I'd always believed in a soul. So I reverted to Islam, and being a Muslim but not being around other Muslims is quite difficult because you don't have that network of support, and your friends aren't Muslim and they're pulling you in one direction. So although I was a Muslim by name, I don't think I was a Muslim by action. And I had to write a story for university, and I felt that I always had this story in me. So when it came to writing this story, it felt quite easy. It kind of just flowed out of me. It was a short story. I'm not going to read it all because time won't permit. It was of about 3,000 words. And the story encapsulates some of the things that I went through as a young person. This existential questions that I had in trying to find out who I was behind the sort of human body. So I'll just read that section of the story very quickly. Right, so here he sits peering into the mirror, but not in a way that one would normally look. This is not to see if his hair is out of place, nor to see if that spot he squeezed a few hours ago had left a mark. No, he sits and stares at himself. So he sits and stares not at himself, but through himself, through his own eyes, and then, as if addressing his very own soul, repeats the question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? He had discovered a long while ago that repetition of this question while staring not at himself, but into himself, evokes a disassociation that, whilst being quite frightening, is also oddly comforting, not to mention intensely euphoric. It is a strange thing drawing comfort from losing oneself in a world that seems to him so mundane and contrived. So I started the story off that way. But then...
Just to put into context,
yes.
Abdullah, so this is, how many years ago?
So I wrote this story...
So you became Muslim?
I was a Muslim, and I wrote this story 7 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
So 7, 8 years ago. So this is the story of a young man who's on a journey to find out who he is behind the cover. He goes to university and he starts to study philosophy. Whilst at the university, he wants to find a book to read. So he goes into the library, and whilst in the library, he's searching for a book, but a piece of paper falls out from one of the shelves. When he opens the paper, I'll skip to that section of the story. So he gets to the end of the aisle and comes back on himself for a second look until he meets back with a French philosophy book. Sorry, 1 second. So yeah, the paper is a tinge of yellow, suggesting it has been exposed to the air for a long time. Carl unfolds the paper so as not to rip it. There is nothing but 2 lines written on it. The reality of man is not his body, the reality of man is his soul. So Carl reads these words, and then for some reason these words really, they hit home with him. He feels an affinity to these words, and he wants to find out who wrote the rest of this. He wants to find out where these pages come from, who is the author and where is the book. So he starts to search the library, but he can't find the rest of the book. So when he's in his philosophy class, he starts to, because he hasn't done this thing for a while where he looks into the mirror, so he starts to stare into the window because everybody's left the classroom, and he starts doing it again. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And at that point, his philosophy teacher walks in. So he's a bit freaked out because his philosophy teacher's seen him doing something a little bit weird. So he thought, I know, I'll ask him a question just to throw him off. So I said, do you believe in a soul? And the philosophy teacher says, I do actually. After all, the reality of man is not his body, the reality of man is his soul. So he's thinking, hang on, he's just said exactly what is on this paper. So he manages to catch up with him, and he said, where did you get that from? And he says, well, my teacher said it to me when I used to go to university in Morocco. So he said, I can't remember the name of the person who wrote this, but I just know it was in Morocco. So then he starts looking on the internet to try and find someone in Morocco who wrote these 2 lines. He can't find anything. So that leads him to say, okay, what I'll do is I'll just go to Morocco. I'll go to Fez, Morocco, and see if, I can find some other writings. So he makes it to Morocco, but unfortunately he can't get into the university because he's not a Muslim, and you have to be a Muslim to get into it. So he dresses up as a Muslim. He puts some garms on, he puts a hat on, and he manages to fraudulently make his way in. And whilst he's at the university, he starts to search the library for books. Unfortunately, he can't find the book. So what does happen is another piece of paper falls out miraculously from the shelf, and on this piece of paper it says something very similar. It says, it's quite a long book. Okay, so it says something very similar, but this time it says the name of the person who wrote the lines. It says Sheikh Abdulaziz. Now, at the time of writing this story, I had absolutely no idea who Sheikh Abdulaziz is, and I don't know why I chose that name, but I did. So he's now got the name of the author, so he's like, right, great. So he goes to the librarians, and the librarians say, we don't know who this is. We've never seen this person before. But so he goes to leave the university, and he must have dropped it on the floor because somebody catches up with him and says, you've dropped this. And he says, by the way, the person who wrote this must have been written by one of his students, because this sheikh is famous for never having written anything down himself. So he goes, do you know where he lives or who his family lives? He goes, yeah, well, they live on such and such street. So this gentleman then makes his way to Al Hassan Street, which is where the family live, supposedly. So he doesn't know which house it is, but he knows that both pages say 172 on them. So he says, there's been so many coincidences, I'm just going to take this as another sign. So he knocks on 172, and lo and behold, the Sheikh's family does live at this address. So there's a young lady that answers the door, and she shows him in. And the only thing that differs here is that this particular sheikh, is alive. But this actually has some bearing later when I've actually spoke to our teacher, because they said they actually did meet a disciple of the sheikh who was the same age as this particular sheikh. So anyway, this sheikh was very, very old, and he says to him, the story ends by, he says to him, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. I've come to speak to you about some of the things you've written. And the Sheikh laughs at him and says, you almost sound believable, as if he already knew that he wasn't really a Muslim. And he questions him and he says, I thought your first question to me would be about the strange set of circumstances that have led you to me. And he says, well, yeah, I would like to ask about that. And he says that whenever two hearts are similar, the universe will always find a way to connect them. So you have 5 more minutes. So,
I think they forgot about the
so my introduction to the path was through Ustad Haroon, who, as you all know, is my brother-in-law. He, for a long time, he read my story a while back and said, you know, your story sounds very similar to my sheikh's story in how he's had an opening and found his way. So I wasn't really, obviously, I was a Muslim, but I wasn't really on what Harun was on. I just thought his turban was on a bit too tight or something, and so so I wasn't really.
This is Ustad Haroon.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
So I wasn't really.
He's on a high pulpit at the moment.
So I wasn't really paying too much attention.
Come down as well, just so that fits the story quite well. Please come down, please.
So I wasn't really, I was one of the bid'ah police. So anything that didn't look the same as what I was used to, was very wary of. It's rightly so, perhaps. So it took me a while, but eventually I went to the spiritual retreat. I
think this took place last year. Markfield. Leicester, right? Yeah.
So at Markfield, the things that we started to learn about.
Interestingly, the retreat was called Who Am I?
Yes. Yeah, so I straight away had an affinity to the things that we were learning, and I knew it to be the truth straight away. And I had a little bit of a moment with Ustad. As soon as I started to learn about that, I knew it was what I was looking for. So when I had the opportunity to come to the mosque to meet the sheikh, I came, but I was still a little bit wary. So I came. And I remember sitting at the back just there, and I believe everyone was doing a maraqabah, and I was like, what's going on here then? So I was sitting at the back, and then at the end, the sheikh, they did a dua, and during the dua, they mentioned the name of Sheikh Abdulaziz Dabag. And I said, Sheikh Abdulaziz? I was like, Haroon, who's Sheikh Abdulaziz? And he explained. So I opened my phone to the store, and I said, look at that name there. And he was like, SubhanAllah, you need to meet the sheikh today. So I met with the sheikh, and I just explained. I said, what's going on? So to me, it was really strange, but obviously to the Sheikh, it was just, yeah, it's just Allah's guided you, and he wasn't blown away at all, like I was. He was just like, yeah. So you've been Allah has guided you, and this is His method of guiding you, and you're on the path now, and follow it basically. So the Ustads thought people might benefit from the story, so I hope you have. And inshallah, if anybody wants me to send this to them, I can email it to you. And £2 a copy. And no, obviously I can send this to you if anyone wants to read it.
If you put it in the WhatsApp group that we just joined, maybe that would be.
Inshallah, yeah, I can do that.
The Sheikh has also said that the book.
Just put the speaker.
The Sheikh Ahmed Bagh has also said that the book hasn't been finished. So now the next chapter begins when you start to embark on the path.
Inshallah, inshallah.
Yeah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you steadfast.
So, Jazak, thank you for your sharing that story. I really enjoyed it and it's inspiring. So, as I was saying, that if someone is sincere, really want to know the truth and find truth, then even amongst, look up Brother Abdullah's story. He was a Jehovah's Witness. So he come from a completely different faith. You think we're knocking on your doors instead, saying, are you joining soon? But Allah he knocked on Allah's door, and Allah showed him the way, guided him amongst all the darkness. So this will happen repeatedly, especially going towards in time of the DAJJAL, that the miraculous events, like this is a miracle for me. Like, why would you pick out Abdullah in his story? This is a story he wrote, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on.
So also,
And put the mic.
I didn't realize at the time, but the Sheikh they told me that it actually mirrors him, because he went to
Him and the Sheikh on the bar.
yes,
Right.
because he saw some writings from Sheikh Abdullah and nobody knew who he was, and so he had to sort of find out information about him. And he says at one point is that I didn't know this at the time, but Sheikh Abdullah never wrote anything down himself. So I learnt that while speaking to him, so I was blown away. Yeah.
So obviously the universe here now is a Muslim would say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided him.
Exactly.
The universe can't guide anybody. It just knows they exist, I think. So that shows that in the time of near the Masih al-Dajjal will come, that the pious and the righteous will be guided miraculously by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the angels, spiritually and so on. So for example, like when the Dajjal will come, like Sheikh Hadassa was mentioning, and claim that I've revived your parents. And there you go, there's a moment that looks like it. Normally people would fall for that. Yeah, of course it looks quite convincing. But people of insight and spirituality, which we are learning, we could be at the cusp of now, maybe happen 1,000 years, and you'll be referenced to, so-and-so was my great-grandchildren, grandfather, and they've learned this, and now they passed down the generations over the centuries. So then, people of the righteous and people of guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with intuition, they will can see beyond the darknesses, and Allah will guide. A vast majority, unfortunately, like now, the vast majority of humanity and even Muslim, unfortunately, will be led, towards that Dajjalic system. But the sincere ones will always stay haqq and truth, and Allah will guide them and take them to the safety and salvation. And under the army of Sayyidina Imam Mahdi, which we'll hear later on from Ustad Majid, inshallah. So here the retreat, as you can see, is developing in terms of knowing about the Dajjal, his system, his followers, and so on. And then slowly also here, like a solution. Every day, inshallah, we discuss about solution, but we'll hear a full-fledged solution, how we can be successful. How that Brother Abdullah is being guided on the same path and he's actually benefiting. And like Ustad Harun said, the chapter 2 only begins. Chapter 1 is just completed, and this will continue. And this could be reflection of every one of us here and our own lives, which is unique in a very way as well. It's very miraculous in many ways as well, inshallah. That it's not by choice, by chance, that we all sat here, because my friend told me or my family told me. It is designed, by design. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has brought it here. So we should be thankful to Him that out of the thousands or millions of people out there, we have few hundreds here, a few, tens of people are here learning from this, inshallah. So on this, inshallah, I'd like to ask Ustad Abdullah make a quick dua.
Abdullah to make a point.
Yeah, but I think it'll be better. You should make dua, inshallah.
Abdullah, if you can just make dua.
Finish all this.
Please just finish up.
Okay, inshallah. Sorry. Oh Allah, thank you for guiding us. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for showing us through Islam and through the blessed Sheikh that we can be better. Help us to keep on striving to be better. Help us to follow the teachings, the things that we've learned. Help us to keep on driving forward, keep on going forward, even in times of hardship, in times of difficulty. Please help us to know the direction in which we need to go and to follow it. Ya Allah. Ya Allah, thank you. Thank you so much for the blessings that you've given us. Thank you for guiding each and every one of us to this particular path, Ya Allah. We ask that you help the road ahead. You make it easier for us and easy to follow, Allah. We ask that you help the tests that you give us. You give us the strength to overcome them. And we ask that you help us to grow from these tests and gain in strength with each and every test. Please bless our families, Allah. Please help us to show us through our own interactions with them that we are growing, we are better, we are growing into better people, and we are growing with the things that our blessed teacher is showing us, Ya Allah. Please help us to be examples and guiding stars for the people around us, Ya Allah. Ya Allah. Please protect us from our own selves, our own nafs. Help us to overcome the strength of our nafs, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, surely our nafs is our biggest test, Ya Allah. Please give us the strength that we need to battle it, to give jihad on our nafs, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Rabbul Alameen, we ask you to please bless us for the little efforts that we're making during this Itikaf, Allah. Please help us to continue and to get better with each day as each day comes, Ya Allah. Ameen. Ameen.